Hello, Robert.
Hello, Hugo.
I have a question for you.
Oh, please go ahead.
Do you still love me, even after the game we've played this week?
Oh, it's tough. We're in a bit of a rough patch now, I think.
Yeah, it's some kind of oddity. Is this game? First of all, I wanted to apologize to our I want to say readers, but that's not the right word. Our listeners. I think that's it.
Listeners, yeah.
Listeners, yeah, because there is some construction going at my house. So, and they're drilling in the concrete. They're redoing the foundation walls and everything. And so, if there is noise, if there is vibrations, I want to apologize once again. It's still the pandemic, still the quarantine, and so we cannot go to a studio or anywhere else for that matter. I heard we'll soon be able to get haircuts though, so that's nice.
My wife gave me a haircut this weekend, and it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, my girlfriend did the same about a week ago, and it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah,
I've thought about shaving my head, but yeah, maybe not. It's
my head is funny shaped. I'm never going to shave it, not on purpose.
So let's get to it then. We've played Phantasmagoria, which is an FMV game, and for the younger people in the audience, or just people that wanted to forget, FMV stands for full motion video. So it was a special time period because it was CD-ROM had been out for about a decade at this point, but they were still coming into mainstream usage. And so the game editors, the game developers decided to take this opportunity to use all this new free space, all this space available on a CD, because if you go back a few years before, games were still on diskettes. And so you had about a megabyte and a half per disc, I think.
Something like that, yeah. Maybe 1.7. It's been a while.
Yeah, then you could have multiple discs, of course, but still really not much space to use to construct a game and put in shiny graphics and sounds and everything. And so out came the CD with 700 megabytes. And so for the first time, you could use actual video, recorded video with real actors, real people. And of course, you had to compress it, usually, because even today, it, of course, all depends on the definition and the scaling and everything. But even today on a DVD, I think, which is 4.7 gigabytes, you can still have a quality level that isn't really high. And so when the CD came out, it was about 10 at the time, when the CD really came out into mainstream computers. You had these games on sometimes multiple CDs, which is the case today, where you could see real actors play in a false environment, as is the case once again for Phantasmagoria. So I've decided to I invited you to play this game, not really with me, but at the same time as I did. And let's say that the experience was strange, maybe.
It was different. Because I had no idea what to expect from this game. It was one that when it came out, completely passed me by. I didn't know it existed, so I knew nothing about it. So coming into this fresh was maybe not the ideal way to go into it, because I had no sort of nostalgic feelings for it.
Yeah.
Which made it a lot more difficult to look over the game's many flaws.
Oh, there's so many flaws.
So why don't you start by just explaining what is this game about?
Sure. Sorry?
How does this one start?
Yeah, it starts. Well, I have to explain something first before I explain the game. The game is the chief director of the game is Roberta Williams, who
Right,
worked
yeah.
on the King Quest series. Was it Space Quest 2 and Leisure Suit Larry and all these point and click games from the end of the 80s and from the 90s. And so you had a bunch of settings, a fantasy settings, a space setting, a semi-porno setting. I don't know. And then I think she wanted to try this new format, but because I think basically all the King Quest games and the Space Quest and everything else came on discs, on diskettes. And so I think she wanted to try to once again, and there's some noise out of the window. I'm sorry about that. She wanted to use all the space, all this technology. I read that they built an entire studio to film this game. They did it in front of green screens, which at the time was a relatively new technology to do some special effects. And so this game starts. This is a horror game. It's still a point-and-click adventure game. It's a horror game. It's an adult game, and I hope you can hear the quotation marks in my voice. And so this game starts. It's about a couple, Adrienne and Don. Don is a photograph, and Adrienne is a writer. So both long gone professions.
Yes. They've bought a giant castle.
Yeah,
the photographer and writer salary. It's
it's a long time ago when the salaries were good, and Facebook didn't exist. Sorry. And so they bought this house, this gigantic mansion off the coast of Maine. Is it
I'm not
Maine?
sure if it was Maine. It might have been Massachusetts. It's somewhere on the sort of
on the East Coast,
the New England coast.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so it's really, really remote, and we learned that it's basically from the intro sequence. And I have maybe to specify, we played the GOG version, which is the version that has been adapted to work on Windows 10. Because I think I have the game on CD, the original game on CD, but it's for Windows 95 and MS-DOS or Windows 3.1, I don't know. So don't have a copy of Windows 3.1, don't have a working computer that can run it. Didn't want to try to install it on a virtual machine and so on. So the game is available on GOG, so we bought that version. And that version really works well for me. I don't know if you had any bugs with it.
No, it worked very well. Maybe unfortunately.
And so but the thing is, it doesn't start. The game doesn't start with the intro sequence.
No, that was interesting because when I first went into it, I started right with chapter 1, and it sort of jumps right in, and you don't know what's happening, and I hadn't realized that I had missed the intro thing until
There's a button on the main menu which it's called Watch Intro, I think, watch something like that. And but if you played it back in the day, which I did, you had this fairly long intro sequence where it's something about a haunted house with a magician, an evil magician, something like that. There's also some curtains flying. It's a bunch
there might
of
have been an urn.
Yeah, something like that. It's a bunch of 90s CGI stuff. It's even worse than the stuff from the what's that movie about a black hole? And there's Lawrence Fishburne in it. And Event Horizon. There's
Event Horizon. Yes.
Yeah, because there's a scene where it came out in the 90s too, I think. And there's a scene where they're walking in this hallway, and there's this floating plastic bottle that goes across the screen. And maybe in 1995, 96, 97, it was great. It was fantastic. But it looks like shit.
Yeah.
And so it's part of these 90s movies that are really did not age well. Same thing for Alien 3. where
You
you
know
could.
what? I liked Alien 3.
It wasn't bad, but the alien creature in it, the CGI, it's not good.
I find it passable, but I don't know. I like the mood of that movie. But we can get back to Alien 3.
Yeah,
I will
maybe so.
argue about that any other time.
Yeah, so coming back to Phantasmagoria, so there's this intro sequence where basically it's Adrienne dreaming about all sort of evil stuff and urns and curtains,
I
and
think she also sees her future at the very end of it when she
yeah,
wakes.
she sees. Well, it's basically a dream in a dream. So she wakes up and then she's on a torture device of some kind, and so she wakes up screaming and panting, and then her husband, who is of course in the bed with her, tries to calm her, and then it turns into a really awkward sex scene.
Very awkward.
I don't know if you've seen The Room with
Yes,
yeah,
I have.
and so there's a in The Room there's two sex scenes, which is I've learned is the same one, but just some stuff that were cut from the first scene and then just presented in the second one because the actress found what's his name,
Tommy
Tommy.
Wiseau.
So she found Tommy was really really weird, and so she didn't want to do another sex scene with him. And so so there's this sex scene at the start of Phantasmagoria, and it's all tacky, it's all cheap, and the video is a bit choppy too because it has been compressed to fit on CD. So it's already interlaced. It's already a low definition, and then there's this choppiness and this campiness, and so
Yeah.
but yeah, so basically the scenario of the game is that you play as Adrian and you explore the house, and then some evil stuff happens.
Right. And you have to kind of find your way to figure out why the evil stuff is happening and maybe stop it.
Yeah, so I think it came out in 95. It's 25 years ago, so I think we can go into spoiler territory.
Oh yeah, I don't ruin this for anyone.
And so basically what you do is you learn the game is divided into 7 chapters. You talked about chapter 1 a few minutes ago. The game is divided into 7 chapters, which is not exactly 7 days. I think the 6th and 7th chapters are the same day.
Yeah, I think one is the like afternoon, evening, and then
something like that. But basically, it's a chapter a day, and you explore the house. And as you explore it, you discover some really, really sinister stuff. The guy that lived there before, which was called Carno, which was a famous magician, and he basically went completely evil. He killed his 5 wives,
I think
4
it
or
was
5.
5.
5,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, at first
And
you hear they're dead, but you do find out that he killed them.
yeah, and so at the end of the first day, you basically liberate this evil spirit, and he goes to possess your husband.
Right.
And then, as time goes by, your husband becomes more and more comically evil. I think.
Yeah, well, and I think this would have worked a lot better if Don, the husband, had not been kind of an asshole to start with. Like, if he had been like a really nice, normal guy, and then kind of like started going more and more evil, this would have worked a lot better. But
Yeah.
he starts off, he's a photographer with a ponytail who smokes cigarettes at breakfast. And like that's him starting off as the nice guy. And it just you never really see the slide to evil. Like in the last couple chapters when he's cartoonishly evil, it's actually like in the very last chapter he's kind of good at it, like because he's just he's just cackling all the time. He's got face paint on. It's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
But as you know, horror and like creeping dread of your husband slowly losing his mind and growing increasingly evil, it doesn't quite work. He just kind of gets shouty, and then
the actors. I think, and I think it's true for all FMV games. They're not good. I mean, no one's good in this. No one's good in any FMV game that I can remember. Even Command and Conquer and Red Alert at the time, it was so bad.
Yeah, and I
And
mean, I think Adrian has a couple moments where she's not a bad actress, but I was just reading about it, and one of the things we haven't really talked about yet is that
yeah,
while the people are real, everything else
yeah,
is like 90s computer generated. So it's a lot of like marble textures and weird wood, but it's
yeah,
everything is CGI. So when they were acting, and if they're picking up objects and stuff, they're just picking up things that are painted green screen color. And
yeah.
so it seems like the entire format of it makes it so that good acting is impossible. Like it's just even if you were a good actor, there's nothing you can do with it.
Yeah, and I think it was also a bit true with, and I'm maybe digressing here, but the prequel trilogy of Star Wars, where you had all this. If you've seen some behind the scenes footage, it's not green stuff anymore. I think it's blue or
Purple
something
maybe, but
else.
yeah, no, I've seen, and everything is they're just in virtual everything. No
Yeah,
scenes exist. It's all just imaginary.
and so yeah, so in this game, it's even Adrian and it's also something I will talk about more in a few minutes. But there's always this lag because when you're, for example, walking around the house, you had to you have Adrian, who is always wearing the same thing. It's same goes for Don. I don't know what was it easier for them to just shoot everything in one day or
Well, I actually read about this, and
yeah,
the way they figured it was that because they had to film her like walking across her various rooms and so on,
yeah.
if they had her in a different outfit every day, they would have had to just keep reshooting, someone walking from a corner of a room to another corner, and
Oh yeah,
the production costs would have gone even higher, and it wouldn't have worked. Not
I
that it
see.
really worked in the first place, but
I
that's
mean, it's oh god, it's I don't hate it. I don't like it. I don't hate it either. It's
at
uh,
times it was kind of charming, like
yeah,
because you can see where the ambition is in
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But I think the technology never really worked.
It's
And
not. I think, like you said, it's a bit too ambitious. But like I was saying, this when you're moving Adrian around and you're clicking on something, I don't know if it was because of the technology of the time, because the CD players were CD drives are really slow. But you click on something and there's always a split second where nothing happens, and then the cutscene in quotation marks here, but this movement happens, and then I don't know, she walks across a room, or she goes down a flight of stairs, and then she stops, and then after another second, you can control her again. It's since it's not in. Once again, it's all FMV, it's all video, so you never. I never felt I had direct control over her. I
no,
always felt that I was suggesting her to go someplace, and then she always said yes. But there's sometimes where, and there's also sometimes where she doesn't say anything. She doesn't move. You click, you talk to someone, or there's a scene where there's a dialogue, and the other person says something, and then it cuts back to Adrienne, and she's for 2, 3, 4 seconds she doesn't say anything. I mean, if this happened in real life, you start to ask yourself: is this person having a problem? Is there
yeah,
something wrong? And but now then there it's constant, and so it adds to the feeling that the game's trying so hard to be something that it cannot be.
right.
And I don't think it was the problem of maybe a technological problem, maybe a writing problem.
I think
Uh,
I think it's both of those. I think they tried to do too much with the technology, but I think if the writing had been better, if the story had made more sense, if like the characters behaved in believable ways, um,
yeah,
I think a lot of this would have been easier to look past, but because like I was saying earlier, how I didn't have any nostalgia around this game, so there was I was going into it very dry and with no opinion and no warm feelings towards it. The story never ever brought me in because there's a whole bunch of mystery of oh, why did this magician in the big haunted house, how did it become haunted? And you find out that he had gone to Paris to buy some actual magic book, but it was never oh, I really want to find out. It's well, I guess I got to find out to keep going.
I mean, and this is interesting because we both used walkthrough to complete the game, and I've discovered, because I've played it, like I said, about now 20 years ago, and a few years after it came out, and I remember I was scared. I don't want to say scared shitless, but close to that. Exploring the house. I mean, I was 10 years old, 12 maybe, and I was exploring the house even on the first day where basically nothing happens. But there's this scene where you are in Carno's old bedroom, and that's a funny thing. There's a huge painting of himself in his room.
Yes.
And how narcissistic do you have to be to have a painting of yourself in your bedroom looking at you when you're on the bed?
Okay, the thing I don't understand about this is, so on the second floor, and this is just one of those, this doesn't matter at all. But on the second floor, there's his bedroom and his wife's bedroom. But then upstairs is the bedroom where you, Adrian, and Dawn are sleeping in a bedroom, which is a nicer bedroom with a better view next to this giant room with this glass ceiling and a fountain thing in the middle.
Yeah.
And why is he on this this second floor? Anyways, it just these little things that didn't make sense all the way through.
Yeah, maybe the nice bedroom upstairs is for business time if you are a fan of Flight of the Conchords. But yeah, so it's anyway. So
sorry, you were talking about how it was scaring you, and then I just went off on the house.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what this podcast sorry is all about. And so you sit on the bed, on the old Carno's bed, and that's another thing I want to mention. This guy is dead. This guy has been dead for at least 75 years.
I think they say almost 100.
Almost 100, and everything is still there. No one came to sell the furniture. No one removed the drapes.
It's all very clean. Very little stuff has sheets on it, like you'd expect in some house. Everything. There was actually a part in this that really stuck out to me. A little later on, you go to the greenhouse of one of his wives.
Yeah.
The first real death as well, which turned out to be hilarious. But on the table in her greenhouse are some dead plants that just look like they had died a few months ago, not a century before.
There shouldn't be anything left in that greenhouse.
Right, and they're just okay, well, those plants definitely are brown, but I don't think century-old dead things are brown. They're just gone.
No, I mean, when my girlfriend kills a plant, it's a few days goes by and there's nothing left. Sorry. And so, as I was saying, I'll get to it, I promise. Yeah. So you sit on Carno's bed, and I don't know what reason. I mean, it's your house. You can sit wherever you like. But you sit on Carno's old bed, and then you lie down, and there's this sequence where hands get through. And this, I even when I replayed it, I found it interesting. And so some hands come out of the mattress and try to grab you and try to pull you down through the mattress and down to, I don't know, the floor or the basement or something. And then Adrienne wakes up again and she's scared and Don, she screams for Don and he comes running. There's no sex there. That's a better thing. That's a good thing. but yeah, so there's, I think it was, and having replayed it for this episode, I think it's more interesting to explore, to discover some scary stuff ish, and to just enjoy the atmosphere instead of going through this this scenario with all these characters that are so extreme in the way that they play themselves that it's absurd.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about this, but I really liked. There's a certain atmosphere once again where it's interesting, and there's also the fact that it's not. I mean, yeah, there's this evil spirit, and at the end, there's a really, really cheesy monster.
Is there?
But but it's also not. I mean, it's not a scenario where you learn that it's an ancient Indian burial ground, or it's Satan, or it's something cheesy like that. I mean, yes, Evil Magician is cheesy, but it's also
Evil
interesting.
Magician haunted by an old Egyptian book.
Yeah, but still, I think it's different. Maybe.
Oh yeah, it's different. It's not the usual sort of cliche horror trope. It's horror trope adjacent.
And so so you explore the house, you go through the chapters. The one thing I found interesting is if you use the walkthrough, because there is a lot to read, to discover, to watch. You talked about the way Carno's wives died.
Yeah.
And if you only use the walkthrough, you never see any one of them getting killed.
Okay, because I did use the walkthrough and I did see, I think, all of them. There was some honestly really good comic relief.
Yeah.
The first one I saw was in the greenhouse, and she dies because he takes a trowel, like a garden trowel,
Yeah,
and just jams it in her mouth, and she dies very quick. It's odd, and it doesn't make sense, but
yeah.
And it's funny because when this game first came out, and this is very 90s, it was really controversial because of all the violence.
Yeah. And
And
there's
watching the violence now, I don't know what people were worried about. But there is something that is legitimately controversial. I think you're about to mention it.
But maybe not that, but I was about to make a reference to Night Trap. I mean, there's this history of censorship where, I mean, when the Halloween game came out on the Atari console in the early 80s or the end of the 70s, there's nothing to see. There's nothing there. It's a block of pixel with another line of pixel protruding from it, and it's supposed to be the chainsaw. Was it? Oh, not Halloween. It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But and then you just go up to people, and there's this screeching sound where it's supposed to mean that you're killing someone. And this was controversial at the time. And then there was the perfect example, Night Trap, where that gave birth to the ESRB, the rating board in the US. And so where it's basically, kidnapping, maybe rape, I don't know. I never played it, but I saw some let's play of it, and it's comical. I mean, of course, this is you see the solo-ish reference to being again kidnapped, raped, attacked, assaulted, everything. And it's not fun to see it today. I wouldn't play this game today, even if the objective is to stop the assailants. But yeah, this I see what you what you mean we talk about controversial scene in Phantasmagoria. There's this campy violence that could well be interesting to see, for example, at Fantasia Festival, where you can see all this gratuitous violence where people laugh, scream. But there's a scene in Phantasmagoria, I think it's day 3 or 4, something like that.
I think it's the start of the 4th chapter.
And there's this scene where Don is becoming more evil all the time. He rapes Adrian. And yeah, I can see why. And there's this, I remember there's a censor mode in the game where everything is pixelated, and this scene is completely skipped. Because it really doesn't add much to the game, and
like with everything else in the game, when something like horrible or weird happens, nobody really, like when you see them in the next scene, like they're just back to the character they were before the bad thing happened, which, you know, it really takes some of the horror out of it. But I mean, with that scene in particular, I think she actually does react to it, but then she goes downstairs and meets one of the comic relief characters, which we should talk about. But it's all very that was the only thing that was like oh
yeah, and it's, I mean, she cries afterward.
Yes,
but then
which was one of the rare times she does. But then she goes downstairs, and we see, for I think the second time, our comic relief duo in
this
Iris and what's her name,
Harriet and Cyrus. Yes, this family. Well, it's a mother and the son, and you'll have to excuse me for the noise right there. Once again, they're drilling in concrete, so that's fun. It should be over one day, but yeah. I mean, anyway. So there's this family of, don't want to say vagrants.
I was going to say vagrants. I think they're vagrants.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, they're not portrayed as gypsies or anything.
No, they're just living in the barn/garage.
Yeah, and so, but they're wearing. The Harriet, I think, looks like a troll or something.
I would actually say a Smurf. She's got a Smurf hat.
And so, so there's this family that lived there for a while, I think, and they are comic relief, but they also serve. Well, there's this scene a little bit later on where Harriet tells Adrian that she's a psychic, I think.
Yeah, and she reads her palm and then does some tarot cards.
Yeah, and there's this seance where Harriet invokes the spirit of the dead magician with some bile. I don't know.
Which I think was accidental on her part, and that whole scene never made any sense. Why it was like, oh, we're having a seance, and you just go to the barn and you're having a seance, which was never mentioned before, and not really mentioned after.
Yeah, and it's all. I mean,
the son is portrayed as kind of slow, and he wears, he's got the overalls like he's a mice and men or something.
Yeah, he's really, really strong, but is stupid, something like that.
I think he says at one point that his mother always says that he has more. He's stronger than he is smart. Essentially, it's kind of. You watch it now and you're like, I don't know about this.
This wouldn't work today. There would be a petition or something to. Anyway,
honestly, I don't think it worked then, but
no,
kind of ignored so much as.
I mean, but he's useful for a few things.
Yeah, he knocks over a tree for you, so you can kind of walk across a little ravine.
And that's the interesting and a bit strange thing I see about this game is that you clearly see the influence of previous titles by Roberta Williams. You clearly see the influence of classic adventure games, classic point-and-click adventure games, where you have to ask a character to help you, then to knock down a tree, for example, or to open a door, or to but there's also this horror element that is so at the other end of the spectrum for that kind of games, where you cannot reconcile both. I mean, there's this tree that Cyrus has to put down, but then you walk over and you get to a crypt, and so it's all this in French the word would be dichotomy, but it's all one thing and its opposite, I think.
And I think one of the problems with this is because they tried to do everything in full motion video, the writing they didn't focus as much time on, and I think this game might have actually been scarier if it was animated.
Yeah, but I mean, on the wiki for the game, it says that Roberta Williams wrote a 550-page script. I mean, what was cut? I mean, I don't know.
Good God!
It's really to think that. Oh Jesus, they're really going at it now. If the house fails and I die, remember that I love you.
What a way to go out talking about this game, but well, good luck.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, and so, and once again, there's some interesting stuff in there. There's this.
Well, that's the thing, is that there are elements of interesting things.
Yeah, there's this machine, this automated fortune teller in the entrance of the house, and every day you can put a token in and just get like in a fortune cookie, you get a fortune, but every time it's darker and darker and darker, and the machine is darker too. The lighting is different, and I thought that was okay. Yeah, it's a bit cheesy because it starts like, oh, someone watching you, and then it's at the end of the last chapter. I think it's, what are you waiting for? Just get out of here. But once again, all this and the music is quite good too. I mean, even if it's some usually MIDI music.
It's like an organ MIDI, but one of the best things about the game is the music, and it's kind of like I mean, it's a bit dated just in the sound because they didn't have the space to have really high fidelity sound or whatever, but the music works for the game, and it's not like a lot of things where you hear it over and over and you just get sick of it. Like, I never got sick of it. It was, and the finale song when you're watching the credits is phenomenal. It's like Danger Zone, but about a horror thing. I don't know. It was. I really liked it. I put the headphones on my wife's head, and she was like, "What is wrong with you?"
And the intro music is good too. I mean, if you leave out the intro video, but the music that plays on the main menu, for example, it's all somber, it's all dramatic, it's all, you feel this. There's something there.
I think if the game had lived up to the sort of scene that the music sets, this would have been a lot better.
I want to talk about maybe go fast forward through the game, because we won't talk about every chapter, because basically it's go there, get the thing, open the stuff, and even more if you once again read the walkthrough. I mean, the one I used, like I said before, you basically skip all the lore, you basically skip all the murders, which isn't fun, because I think the interesting again in this game is exploration, discovery, even if it's sometimes campy, and there's still a bunch of, I think, King Quest and Space Quest and everything else were known for their moon logic puzzles, which is basically, you have to combine the cheese and the tire to build an airplane.
Right.
And it's not really there in this game.
No, I think like the closest was to get a key, you needed a newspaper and a nail.
Yeah, because there's a key in the keyhole. You have to push the key through the keyhole, and then it's gonna fall on the newspaper. But there's this place where I think just after you open this door, you go out a flight of stairs, and there's this wood paneling where you can clearly think, okay, there's something there, but you don't. It's not really clear else either. It's. I mean, there's this. I knew there was something. I remember that you had to smash this thing with a hammer, but and you cannot do this the first time you go up there either. So that's confusing.
No, there were a bunch of weird things where you had to like look at something from somewhere else to unlock it. So for that one, you had to have looked through a telescope, and seen on the house like, oh, there's extra windows. What's in that room?
But yeah, so there's 2-3 times like this where you have to go through a detour per se to just go on with the story, and that was a bit frustrating. I mean, I can understand why they do this, but if there's no walkthrough and if you don't use, there's an in-game help, which is basically a talking Red Skull, and he tells you some stuff. But yeah, I had this impression that it was put there because the game was maybe too difficult, too obtuse, too.
Yeah, at some time I think obtuse is the word, because it was just like, oh, you have to go to another room now to see a thing before you can move on.
Yeah.
When there was no like necessary reason to do it, you just had to. Just following the walkthrough was like, what? Why is this? Okay, I have to look out a window. Like, all right.
Yeah.
And then 2 chapters later, you see that like, oh, when you talk to a character, you mention a thing you saw at the window.
Yeah. I want to talk about the end of the game, because basically what happens is Dawn gets more and more evil, and you decide to stop this curse and try to save your husband, even if he's an asshole. And
the only moment of like real sort of love between these two you see is when she's packing up to leave in the start of the last chapter, and then she looks at this big photo of her and Dawn in happier times, and she feels really bad, like, oh, she actually did love him, because that never shows up in the rest of the thing. Like, even in the nice intro parts when they're all like supposedly happy together or whatever, it does not exist until this one moment when she's looking at a like old photo.
I mean, I can understand this uneasiness in the intro sequence, because I mean, I never had to simulate us having sex in front of a camera.
No,
but and maybe that's your thing. I don't know. I don't really want to know. But I mean, I could understand if you never did this before. If you're not an actress with years and years and years of experience, you're not gonna be in a good mood to do this. You're not gonna be able to show some feelings. You're just gonna want to go through with it and be done.
Well, and the writing never really sets them up to like have that, because when they first, not just in the intro thing, but in the first chapter when they had like a conversation over coffee and cigarettes for breakfast, again, great, part of a balanced diet. They never. He still comes across as this like pushy jerk. That there's no sort of sense of that kind of like loving or even decent relationship. It's just like he dragged her along to this mansion he decided to buy, and he's like, leave me alone, I'm gonna make my dark room in this upstairs bathroom. And so it never, it just, the writing wasn't there to bring them together, and the acting really, they were not good enough to cover for bad writing.
But I think I can understand why the writing wasn't good. Because I don't see this kind of gameplay, this kind of game mechanics be used to have a really profound dialogue. I mean, I don't know if you've played, for example, the Mass Effect games,
Yes.
or basically any game where you can choose between 2 to, I don't know, 28 sentences to say, and I can imagine that if you had this implemented in this game, you would have to shoot every possible answer, every possible dialogue tree, and I don't know, you would have needed 28 CDs.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's. I mean, the writing, clearly, like you said, the writing isn't really good, but maybe the technical limitations were a factor too in that decision.
Well, yeah, and I think all the problems with this game come down to the fact that they wanted to try and do something that the technology really just didn't exist for. Like, if this game existed now, everyone
Yeah.
would be sort of CGI animated, and they'd have realistic faces, and the hair would be like, oh wow, that looks really like actual hair.
Yeah.
And it would work because they would just have to have voice actors, and they would be able to animate this. And you wouldn't need to shoot the same actress walking in 6 different diagonals across a room just to do one scene.
Yeah. So coming back to the end of the game, so you want to save your husband. You know that he's getting crazier, and he kills a few people. He kills.
I think he kills the phone man.
Yeah, and he kills Harriet and Cyrus, I think.
I thought they got away in my version.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's a different version.
He does kill the cat, though. Spaz. Poor Spaz.
Oh yeah, he kills the cat, which is a dick move.
Yeah, drowns the cat.
Yeah, God, yeah. And so you get down to his dark room, and he starts attacking you, and then you get away, and all this sequence with at the end the evil spirit reincarnated in a really, really cheap looking monster. I think it feels like another game entirely.
Right, because everything is, instead of sort of a slow point and click kind of adventure, find things out, it's you have to make decisions on what you're going to do very quickly.
Yeah.
And you have to be going into your inventory and clicking things. You have to find things in the sort of environment to grab, or to toss the drain cleaner in his face, or whatever it is.
So I had the walkthrough open on my other screen, and I was ready to press pause every time I needed to just check and see what I needed to do. And this, once again, it goes back to the problems of the game. I went through the walkthrough, and it says, okay, you have to get to the crypt, and this is the secret passage is there. And I was like, what? This exists? I mean, and
I never found the crypt. I tried, and it turned out I didn't need to. But
oh, well, that's good. But in my playthrough, I needed to, and so you basically need to go someplace to get a. For me, it was a rosary, I think.
Okay, see, I got the crucifix from the antique store.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Also, there's a few ways you can finish the game with the items you need to basically cancel the curse, and be able to drag the spirit into the magic book, I think. Was it? Yeah. And so but yeah, so this becomes an action sequence where you never needed to do any action at all from the beginning of the game. So you've played maybe 5-10 hours, and I mean, even with the walkthrough, it was about 4 or 5 hours for me.
Yeah, it was 3 or 4 or 5. I didn't really keep track. Time
no, me neither.
Together, but
yeah, but so, and basically after 5 hours of playing, like you said, a slow game of exploration, then you have to run, you have to click items in the right order, you have to be quick about it, and the interface isn't made for it.
No.
There's a way. There's a sequence where you have to go over a hole, basically in a stairway, and the Adrian looks up, and there's this not a guardrail. This
It's a water pipe, I think.
a water pipe. Yeah, sorry, I was looking for the word pipe. and so yeah, you have to grab it, but if you click it in the wrong place, she's just gonna fall down to her death.
Oh, really?
And
I guess I just clicked the right place the first time around.
I think you were lucky. And the same goes for when you get to the room at the end. You have to bar the door. And if you take too much time clicking on stuff and doing the magic and magic thing, the monster gets through and it just rips your face open.
Literally rips your head in half. It's
yeah.
I saw her head get ripped in half a lot of times.
But that's another thing. It's so cheesy, and then it's so gory at the same time. It's I think they could have gone with something less of a shock value, maybe.
Yeah, but I think this was a time of just doing things for shock value. Like now it seems ridiculous because, we've since had like Call of Duty Modern Warfare where you go and you massacre an entire airport kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like shock value has really sort of lessened as a thing that people care about. Things really aren't shocking now. But
I mean,
it seems like shock value was, at least worthwhile the first time. But it like anything else that's like a gimmick, it's a gimmick.
Yeah.
And it gets old very quickly.
Yeah. And so that's Phantasmagoria. That's the game. It's oh god. I don't recommend playing it.
I mean, I think if you can find it for $2 or $3, it's an interesting artifact of a time, and you can see why full motion video died out because it doesn't work. The technology,
I mean,
could never work.
There's still some games, a few games. So there's still some games being made where you basically have a video playing in front of you, and then you choose some paths in the story. I don't know if this could be called FMV, but there's a game. Was it called Night Shift? Anyway, I played it a few months back, and you basically go through this story with branching paths, and then you click. It's same as the thing that Netflix did with Black Mirror.
Right, Bandersnatch. I never actually watched it.
It's a gimmick. I mean, you can choose your own adventure. I mean, there were FMV games, there were books where you could choose your own adventures, and I think they were better than Bandersnatch. But it's sometimes they try to do something gimmicky and it works for a while, and then it just fades out. I mean, no one's talking about Bandersnatch today. And
in the same way that like Avatar made 3D sort of work. 3D never really caught on enough, and I never actually saw Avatar, and I don't think I missed out on anything.
I saw it in 2D, and it's basically Pocahontas in space. And there's so much. I mean, I can understand why if you see it in 3D, and I don't really like 3D for once because I wear glasses, so I'm ending up with 2 pairs of glasses on my nose. And it's all dark because there's this filter on the lenses to see the 3D. So it's not fun. And I don't think haven't seen that many 3D movies. But I saw, for example, I think the only one that did 3D potentially good was Tron Legacy. And the scenario wasn't good enough for this movie to have a sequel. So basically, it's and if you see it in 2D, you're not missing anything either. So it's anyway. So Phantasmagoria, like you said, if you can find it for a few bucks, maybe if you can find it in box, a physical copy. I mean, I'm a sucker for old PC games in their boxes from the 90s, early 2000s. It's not maybe interesting for everyone, but yeah, I have. And Phantasmagoria, as I said, I've played it before when I was younger. It was incredible-ish at the time, but now it's just. I mean, I think it was mostly the fact that it came on 7 CDs, and
so a chapter CD.
yeah, a chapter CD, and there's this near the end of the game where you meet Malcolm, who was a young boy at the time working with Carno, the evil magician, and you meet him and he talks to you for 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah,
and it's all video, and this needed, I think it's chapter 5, something like that, but you needed to take this. I remember this. You needed to take the CD for chapter 7 and put it in the disc tray, and then I think the chapter 7 was shorter, and so there were space left to put this video sequence.
Oh,
yeah, this is the 90s, man. It's
I miss them,
Christ.
but I don't.
Yeah, same thing for me. I just rewatched a YouTube video from a guy called LGR, which stands for, at the time, Lazy Game Reviews. And so he reviewed 7 CD disc changer. And he tried to play Phantasmagoria on it, and to not have to basically swap the CDs. But this just didn't work. Because the thing is that the disc changer isn't reading 7 CDs at the time. It's just putting the trays in a storage place, and then you want to switch to CD5, so you have to push the button, CD5 button, and then it's just gonna switch inside. It's like these stereos who had the 3 CD changer, something like that.
Yeah,
I think
it worked, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, so I think my dad had one for about 20 years, and then just changed it because it broke down. But yeah, it was cool at the time. Once again, you could push CD number 3, and it's gonna switch inside, and
you could hit random, and you could get a song from any of those CDs.
Oh, I never tried that, but yeah. so yeah, I mean the game works perfectly fine on Windows 10. Didn't have any problem on a 4K screen. I don't know how DOSBox really work for the when you talk about resolution, screen size, and so on, but really worked flawlessly for me. Just like we said, the music is good. Maybe you can find the OST, the soundtrack online somewhere, maybe on YouTube. But yeah, so maybe if you want to spend $3 or $4 during a sale, if you wish to see some campy stuff, if you wish to see some cringy stuff too.
Yeah. I think if it was an actual film, it would be a lot like The Room, in the sense that it's kind of bad but it's good, but I think there's just too much dull stuff in between to really, even make the campy stuff pull you through. But if you really want to see like an artifact of why this kind of thing sort of died out, I think this is a really good example, because it was very ambitious in what they tried to do.
Yeah.
And I think that ambition was what in the end killed it.
But they did a sequel. They did the Phantasmagoria 2 Puzzle of Flesh, I think. I haven't played it. It's completely other characters, completely other scenario. But this game reminds me of Stephen King horror novels. And there's been so many TV adaptations of Stephen King stuff. And TV movies, which is like the worst kind of TV stuff.
Although the Stephen King Stand TV movie, HBO, I think it was, anyways, the miniseries, it's like 8 episodes. Very good.
Because
Gary
I remember a movie called Rose Red, and it came on 2 VHS tapes. and it's basically an adaptation once again of a Stephen King book, and it's so bad. And I think this, like you said, if they try to do a TV movie with Phantasmagoria, that could be the low bar that they could be aiming to towards too. So, yeah. So anyway, Robert, thank you very much for this. Thank you very much to have done this suffering with me. I hope the next game will be. Don't. Can we say a better one? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think the next one, whatever it is, will be better. I think if you're going to do a point-and-click adventure, you should try something else.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to get into that, but if you want to see something, just to really get a sense of full motion video, this does give you a good sense of that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So thank you once again, and to the people who are listening to us right now, and thank you, of course, for being here. You can catch up all the other episodes. There's only one other episode for now. We've talked about Half-Life, which is way better as a video game than Phantasmagoria, but still. And you can listen to this on pieuvre.ca. We are also on SoundCloud, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, and we also have a Patreon now. So if you want to help us a bit, maybe help us buy some better games online and to play them for you, so you can become a patron. And until the next episode, maybe in 2 weeks' time, maybe in 3 weeks' time, we'll see. I'll tell you good day.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.